Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm looking out my window over here, and it is torrential downpours and thunder and lightning. 2 days of sun, I was saying a moment ago, leads to 2 days of storms.
It's hilarious. Well, awesome, Tim. So you threw something out onto the table just before we hit the record button. So why don't you kick this off for us?
Yeah, okay. And yeah, really, it comes off, as it usually does, right? It comes off the back of conversations I've been having with men this week. And it's interesting because I've really been on two sides of the coin this week, right? I've been speaking with men who have been applying for the activation method and wanting to come into it. And they've been telling me all about their struggles, really, with intimacy, right? You know, they go out, they work hard, they provide for their family, they come home, and they really would like some acknowledgement, some appreciation, a hug, a warm embrace, as one guy said, just to be able to sit and snuggle with his wife, whether it leads to sex or not, right? So that's one side of the conversation. Whereas the other side of the conversation I've been having this week is with the guys who have started the activation method a few weeks ago. And these guys are in the position where they've ended a sex drought. Guys who have gone from, literally not having sex for, what month are we in? June? For, well, at least 6 months to now having sex several times a week. So I thought it was a really great topic to bring because there's a key distinction here that the guys really embrace that triggers this shift, right? And really, the big shift, it kind of takes them from being the hunter and going after their wife and kind of preying on the wife, wanting to get laid, essentially, to them being the hunted. It's a real nice turnaround. So, yeah, I mean, we'll just dive in and I'll share a little bit more about what's usually going on for these guys. And who knows, we'll see if any of you guys resonate who's listening. We'll see if you've been there with it as well, Doug, because I'm sure that you've had your own journey and struggle with this as well, right? Because I don't know about you, but I remember when I was in a similar position to this, right? Every position is slightly unique. But for me, it was very frustrating. I didn't understand it for a long time because I felt like I was doing all the right things like we've spoken about before, like you have done on the videos, right? You go out there, you provide, you take the risks in business, you push yourself, you leave it all on the battlefield, if you will, and you come home and you live in a great neighborhood, your wife doesn't have to work, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, she should be all over me. Like I'm in great shape. I'm looking seriously, I'm in great shape. I'm looking after myself. I'm providing this way. People would, other women would love to be in this position. It's fair. I don't know about you, but that's a thought that went through my mind. And I know it's a thought that has gone through many of the guys' minds that I've spoken to. And I think it's very easy to go into that place. And in that place, for me at least, it was a whole cascade of resentment that came out, entitlement as well. And it just built. It built and built and built and created an even bigger void between Amelia and I. And there's something I came to realize as I was trying to figure out how to actually solve this, right? And what I realized was in this position that I was in, although I felt like I was doing all the right things, right? When I actually flew a bird's eye view and came above it, it was very different to what I thought, right? And in reality, a question that the guys always ponder when they're in this position that gives a big shift for them is, would you want to have sex with you? Right? Because for some of the guys that we speak with, they've found themselves in this position where they are going out in business and working hard, like we said, but they're coming home on an evening, and although they might live in a great area, although they might drive a nice car, although they might provide and the wife doesn't work, in reality, they're coming home exhausted, beaten down, stressed out. And, we've spoken about it before. They don't realize this, but they're in no man's land, right? Going through the 5 agonies. And when you're in no man's land and you don't know that you're in it, and you don't realize that you're in the 5 agonies, it's very difficult to break that cycle. But if you were to flip it around and just look at it from your wife's perspective, right? And see what she sees when you walk through the door. See what she's greeted with. For some guys, it's like, which version, well, for some women, which version am I going to get tonight? Am I going to get the happy-go-lucky version of the man I married? Or am I going to get the guy where I've got to walk on eggshells because, he's going to erupt at any time? He's going to snap at the kids. He's going to reach for a drink. He's going to be on his phone. And I think it's, very easy to fall into that trap, but also to fall into the trap of believing that, why am I not having sex? But the reality is the only way to end a sex drought is to realize what's really going on and ask yourself that question, well, would you want to have sex with you? Would you? Yeah, obviously. The answer is always yes. No, seriously, would you want to have sex with you, right? Would you want to have sex with the version of you that's coming home on an evening? And then, again, like I said, being able to recognize where you are in the 5 agonies in the no man's land is crucial to being able to end that cycle and switch it. So you can go from being the hunter to being the hunted. And I don't say that lightly. Obviously, like I said, every guy doesn't experience that, but most guys do. Most guys who commit to the path and take the action do experience that. So, yeah, I'm curious, Doug, to hear your thoughts and experience with this. Then we can dive in more about No Man's Land and the 5 agonies.
Well, yeah, so I'm married and I've got 2 kids. So I've definitely hit the sex drought part. But I think it's more important for the men, listening to this is going back in time for me anyway to a point where, fighting with my wife early on in our marriage. And we've been together almost 10 years now in our relationship. So when I go back to that time, the question I asked was what, to get out of that isn't would I have sex with myself, but really is, am I meeting my wife's needs and am I in her world, right? What's going on for her? Because what happened for me, Tim, when I go back there, and obviously hindsight's 2020, when I go back there, it was a revolving cycle. Arguments and distance had gotten so great, right? We were separated. I just resented her. I didn't want to have sex, right, with her at that point. And so it got to a point where I wasn't even trying anymore, right? Just, screw it. And so the more I would try, what I didn't realize at the time, she was also feeling not desired by me, right? And so that pushed us even further apart, which led to a sex drought. And of course, we broke the drought here and there, but because we didn't clean up, we talk about the mud between the glass, right? So the analogy for people first listening to this is you and your partner are standing facing each other and there's a glass between you. And every unsaid word or disagreement or resentment is like throwing a thing of mud on that glass. And eventually that glass gets so dirty you can't see each other. And so even if you're having sex and then you look at the other person through that muddy glass, it pushes you apart again and leads to another sex drought. And that's exactly what the 5 agonies, to me, really causes. And you got to look at those 5 agonies. And we'll talk about how to get out of this sex drought, guys. But before, I think, Tim, if you can dive into the 5 agonies and let these guys know what they are, because you want to have some insight into this, because otherwise you're just giving a hammer. Like we're giving you a hammer, which is the tool, right? But you're not sure when to use that hammer, and then everything, to a hammer, everything's a nail. So you don't want that. You want the actual knowledge base. And so I think that starts with understanding what the 5 agonies are.
And just before I do, I want to kind of clarify a point as well. For a lot of the guys that find themselves in this position, not only, like you've said, they're not meeting their wife's needs, right? But for a lot of the guys, they've completely neglected themselves, right? So they're walking through the door on an evening, not only exhausted from work and stressed out, struggling to switch off from work, right? But also most of them have put on weight because they've started to neglect their health, right?
Yeah.
They're not dressing like they used to do. They're not dressing well. They don't have any passions or hobbies anymore. They've all fallen by the wayside. So they're just, they're kind of depleted. They're not the confident, full stack guy, for the most part, that the wife married. And this isn't anything against them. I'm not kind of beating them down. It's easy to fall into the trap of focusing on business so much, right? And on the 5 agonies, just Once you become aware of what these look like, it's very easy for you to determine whether or not you're in them. It's not for Doug and I to say, hey, this is where you are. It's for you to determine, because you will work through these in a systematic manner if you are in them. And this is, no man's land is where sex droughts happen, right? It's what we call it, that space where guys are just existing in the marriage and kind of existing in their life, right? Where they've achieved a certain level of financial success, but it's empty, which leads on to the first agony of greed. And this isn't to say that you're a greedy guy. It just means that no matter what you achieve, it's just never enough. You're caught in this constant vicious cycle of next, more, create, conquer, go, 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 go. And you tell yourself that, okay, well, when I get to 1 million or 2 million or 10 million or whatever the figure is, that's when, and you start living for someday, but someday never arrives, because as you achieve these milestones, you just push the goalposts further out. And you believe that, okay, well, when I have the house or the car or the watch or the holiday or whatever it is, then I'll be happy. And then as you start to have these things and you realize you're not, it leads to the second agony of anger, because you can't figure out why you feel like this. Why, when you have everything that you thought you needed in order to be happy, why are you not? Why do you keep pushing so hard? Why do you keep missing the school play for your kid? Why do you keep working late? Why have you not got any passions anymore? And it's frustrating. And it almost leads to guys kind of being like this volcano, a dormant volcano, ready to erupt at any moment, whether it's a short word to the wife, snapping at the kids, staff, whoever it is, they all pay the price, which then leads to the third agony of shame, because you start acting in ways that you can become ashamed of, right? Because it's not you. I've done it again. I said I was going to do it differently this time. I said I was going to be better this time, which leads to the fourth agony of loneliness. Well, you know what? It's easier if I just pull away. It's easier if I'm just not there. Because if I'm not there, then there's no argument. So I'm going to work late. I'm going to stay in the office for longer. I'm going to avoid that dinner. I'm going to avoid that meeting, which then leads to the fifth agony of uncertainty, because it cannot continue. And it cannot continue in that way. Something's going to fall. Which domino will fall first? Will it be your health? From the anxiety, the stress, the lack of sleep, the alcohol? Will it be your marriage? Will you come home one day and find, like some guys have, the divorce papers on the table? Or find your wife having an emotional affair like some guys have? Or will it be the business? Key players start to leave because they don't want to be around in this environment. So these are the 5 agonies, and it's very important to be aware of them, because they're systematic of no man's land, right? A problem in the marriage, a sex drought in the marriage, very rarely has anything to do with the marriage, to be honest. The sex drought in the marriage is a symptom of the man being in no man's land, drifting and wandering and working through the 5 agonies, unaware of the fact that he's there. When you're aware that you're there, you can change, right? It's like going on any journey, right? You enter the destination to the sat-nav. What does it then do? It backtracks to calculate where you are. In order for you to end the sex drought, you've got to know where you are. This doesn't mean going to marriage counseling or therapy, because then, most women don't want to do that, because most women don't feel like they're doing anything wrong. They feel like they are upholding their side of the bargain when you got married. Every guy I speak with, 95% of the men I speak with, I'll say, their wives do not want to be in marriage counseling. And quite frankly, neither do the men.
No.
Neither of them want to talk about it. The wife wants the man to be able to take charge and recognize his shortcomings and turn it around, because when you're in the 5 agonies, you're living from the outside in, right? Relying on the car, the money, the watches, the external things to fill you up, and they don't work, right? You've got the territories upside down. I won't dive into those right now, but the territory is upside down. So when you realize living from the outside in, start to live from the inside out. That's why we give the guys the inside out living protocol. That's the first step in how these men, quite frankly, have been able to go from sex droughts to having sex several times a week, right?
I can speak from my experience, Tim. I was running multiple companies and I was looking for everything external of me. Now, at the time, I didn't see it that way, of course. And when I started using, what now is, the inside out living protocol, that's when everything flipped, right? It went from, my wife wanting me to desire her to all of a sudden me being the one my wife desired. It was, as my wife would say, working on yourself is the sexiest thing you can do. For every
Mm-hmm.
woman sees that way, right? It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like, guys, when you do the inside out live protocol, right, or the live like a king system, when you add that in there, it's almost like a stock, right, that you're watching that's going up. It's ticking up, consistently ticking up, like a big jump when they first notice it, and it keeps going up. It keeps maturing. And just like if you saw a stock that was pretty low, which is most of us, right? A guy's unaware, and you see that jumping up, you want to get on board, especially if you think it's going to keep rising, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your wife's the same thing. When she sees you working on yourself, when she sees you bettering yourself and taking care of yourself, she wants to get on board. She wants to get on you, right? That's what we're looking for here. And that's the quickest way, to end the sex drought, is recognize where you are in the 5 agonies and be honest with yourself.
Mm. Yeah, and this is another reason why talking about it doesn't work, right? Because it addresses the problem that isn't the problem,
It's
right?
like
It's
putting
kind of
lipstick
like,
on a pig.
yeah, it's one way to put it. Yeah, I was going to say pitting over the cracks, but yeah, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. Okay,
Yeah.
but it's true, right? Without the getting to the underlying root and changing that, the problem's going to continue to persist and persist and persist. At which point, it can be even more detrimental because your wife has seen glimmers of hope in between, which she then gets excited. Then when it gets let down, it deflates. It's almost like it rises, drops, rises. Every time it drops lower and lower. And if you don't have the inside out living protocol, right, or the live as a king system is part of the inside out living protocol.
Yep.
If you guys that are watching that are using it, kudos to you. You know what it's like. I'm trying to distill it down for the guys that if you don't have it, either one, get it, or two, find a way to be able to flip it on its head. So in essence, what that would look like is, when you're living from the outside in no man's land with the 5 agonies, typically how men arrange their life, if you imagine a pyramid, is business is at the bottom. That's the main focus because they believe the way to provide for their wife, for the kids, is financially, right? I get it. Above that is wealth, primarily around money. Above that is in relationships. But very rarely do the men ever make it. Very rarely does their power ever rise to the third tier of relationships because so much is given to business and wealth, right? Above that is health, but on rare occasions that gets touched. And then above that is self, which usually gets left completely off the radar, hence no passions, no hobbies. So the way for you to live from the inside out is to flip that on its head, right? Counterintuitive, a little bit scary, but just, bear with me. So when you flip it on its head, self becomes at the base of the pyramid. And this is where the men use the live as a king system to prioritize themselves and work on who they are. So they break the chain that business has on them. They break it. So business no longer controls them, they control it, right? They're able to switch off from work. They're able to start the day with certainty and confidence and clarity, right? And then above that is health, at which point they then start to work on their health and wellness, to have the energy and the capacity to hold more, right? Above that is in relationships, at which point they use a hidden motives technique and clean slate method to meet the wife's needs without her telling them what they are, which if you don't know what that is, then there's other podcasts, go and listen to those. Above that's in wealth and then business. So it's the opposite way. And this way, instead of the power just rising to business and wealth, it rises all the way through into the top. And that's when it starts to spill out into everybody else, right? It's in this place that when they walk in through the door in an evening, that the guy coming home, he's full, right? Instead of being empty and looking for his wife to fill him up, he's able to be full and walk through the door as a full stack, powerful man and spill into her and hold space for her and listen to her. And, by which point it pulls her and invites her into her femininity. She starts to lean on him. She starts to trust him. She leans in, which creates the polarization, north and south, which creates what? Attraction, desire, which often leads to sex.
Yeah. And so, guys, when you're looking at this and how to end a sex drought, what we're telling you is it starts with you, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not about buying flowers. It's not about buying chocolates or what have you. Gifts are great. Date nights, great. They should all be staples in everything you're doing. But to Tim's point, you want to look at your orders of operations, right? It's just like in a business. If you're the CEO or the owner of your company, you need to take care of yourself first. If you're not handling your business, there's no point in talking to your sales director or whoever's running fulfillment for you. That's great. But it starts with you, and it starts with you living from the inside. What's going on for you, and then working on that outwardly. Because all too often, what we do is we go on the trip, we buy the new car, and we're hoping those will be great. But the new car smell goes away, right? Just like owning a new car. Look at the car you're driving now. The car you're driving now, at one time you loved it. Now it's probably just a car you just hop in. That's why external things don't last. But when you look at the internal way of living, right? The internal way of what you're doing, that's when everything changes. Change for me is change for hundreds of guys that we know personally. It just friggin' works. But it starts with working on you. Raise your stock, right? Raise your worth, your internal worth of who you are. This is how you end the drought, and this is how you become more sexy for your partner. And there's a lot of other options, right? We talked about the hidden motives technique in an earlier podcast. Go back and listen to that. Apply it. There's different systems and methodologies, but you've got to get to the basics first, right? You've got to start with the basics before you start doing it. This is not, like building a house. We're not picking out the curtains and putting the chimney on. First, we need a solid foundation, right? Which to build upon. And eventually, you'll get the chimney and curtains. Don't worry about it. The 80-inch, 4K TV and everything else. But what happens for most people that we run into, and guys, we've been doing this for a long time, helping a lot of men, is most men decide they're going to build a house, and they go out and they buy the 80-inch 4K TV when it's on shaky foundation, and the whole house crumbles and crushes the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Build your foundation first, guys. This is what gets you there. We talk about emptying your wife's basket, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's probably not what you're thinking, but go back and listen to that podcast episode. We've laid all this information out for you. Now, obviously, the activation method is a system that takes you through it in a very short period of time. However, a lot of these resources are there for you. And this is your opportunity to ask questions, step up, join the community. It's a free community. It's there for you just to serve you and bring back. But this is how you end that sex drought. So what is a sex drought? I think that's important. We didn't cover that, Tim. What is a sex drought? It's different for everybody. But for most people, it's you want to be having sex with your partner at least once, if not more times a week, right? I would consider if you're not regularly having sex once a week, then you're in a sex drought. There's something that's going on, right? Women want to have sex as well. Men may want to have sex more, especially depending on the age, but women are also going to want to have it. So if you're in that drought, there's something else. As Tim said, it's a symptom. It's just a symptom of a bigger problem. And until you identify and address that problem internally, because it starts with you, you're going to go back to that drought again, season after season after season, like it's Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, I just want to. You raise a great point, and I'm listening. I'm thinking, wow, are we coming across like saying that the guys have to make these massive internal shifts and completely change who they are and how they operate? And no, that's not what we're saying, guys. I don't know if you think that or not, but this isn't about becoming a new you. This isn't about going through decades worth of personal development, right? To be honest, we've done that for you for the most part. The point of this is that if you look at anyone that's successful, they have a leverage, right? And they leverage systems. And the smart, you've got two choices, really. You can either take the longer route where you try and, guess, really, to be honest. Or you can use a system. I'd love it to be the activation method. If it's not, that's fine as well. But use a system for you to be able to actually create this shift, like the Inside Out Living Protocol, right? That you can turn to and lean on and just layer on to what you've already got. Because if you're like most men we work with, then you're not a million miles away. It's not like you're a bad guy. You're close, right? And I feel like you probably know that you are as well. And you just get to You just got to know what pressure points to push, right? What buttons to push. You got to know where to make those fine-tuned adjustments. When you do that, rather than trying to change everything at once, it's a lot easier. It takes a lot less effort than you realize. It does take consistency for sure, and authenticity. That's a big piece. We do always encourage the guys to use the system ethically, because it could very easily be used otherwise. But yeah, if you committed and you be consistent, then it's not going to take a whole lot of internal change at all.
Yeah, and in wrapping this up, I mean, guys, Tim, you might have a couple more points, but I want to bring this full circle. Is these are easy changes to make. It's like anything that you would do in your business, or it's like working out, right? You want to lose weight, it's really easy. Eat less, expend more energy. Simple, right? Now there's details that go in through it, methodologies. Some programs work better than others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But get to the basics, right? Start with the basics. Work on yourself internally, and it can be fun. It can be really, really fun. You can ask the guys in the Brotherhood. All the guys in the Brotherhood, I think, are in the Facebook group as well. You can reach out and just say, hey, want to talk to anybody in the Brotherhood? Is this actually enjoyable? They're doing it with other guys. It's like having your best friends alongside of you for this journey, and they're crushing it in business, crushing it, because when your home life goes better, right? Your sex life is better. Your business life is better. Just they go hand in hand. Tim, a lot of people talk about your sex life and your money are hand in hand, right? The amount of money you actually generate and your sex life are usually right in line, right? You start to if you're doing really well, chances are if you're improving in the bedroom, it's going to get better. And so, use this, ask, and guys are listening to this on the podcast, go over to the community and ask questions. Tim and I are just really conduits here in this community for you guys. It's like we're the host of a party, and you guys are here to have the party and help each other and stimulate conversation. And so I'm also going to recommend you go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus and grab the Reignite cheat sheet. There's a bunch of little exercises you can do there. Very simple, but every guy that we've talked to that's gone through it, it's totally flipped a 180 in their relationships, right? Just make it a little better. Reignite that fire in your house, but also in the bedroom. And the Reignite cheat sheet will take you through that. So that's at thepowerfulman.com/bonus. You can pick that up for free without anything else. Tim, is there anything else you want to leave these guys with?
Nope.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap. All right, guys, thank you for joining us on another episode of The Powerful Man Show. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.